Okay, good morning. Welcome to the AFTRS Screen Production Student Panel Q&A. I'm Joe, I'm the course leader of the BA, and I just, as we start, like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm on, who are the Wangal people of the Eora Nation. This is where I live, and also the Bidjigal and Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, whose land AFTRS is on, which is where we meet, learn and play. So I'd like to just start by saying that this is a session that is primarily about the students' voice, the students' views. If you want information on the course and the details of the course, you can head over to our website. There's lots of information on there. There's PDFs that you can download, videos you can watch, etc. And we'll stick a link in the chat. This session was actually suggested by the students themselves. They came to us with an idea because they felt like there was some info that they would have benefited from having when they were thinking about coming at AFTRS. So this is really designed and shaped by students for students or potential students. So I hope you find that useful and interesting. So I'm going to hand you over to the students now, and they're going to be wrangled today by Cody, who's one of our subject leaders on the course. And actually, what I should say is we've got some set questions to start with. We're going to go through some of those. That's an opportunity for you to have a think about what questions you would like to ask, and you can throw them in the chat there as well. And you don't need to wait till the end, just throw them in the chat as you think of them, and then Cody will feed them into the conversation. So I'll hand you over to Cody.
Thanks, Joe. Good morning, everybody. It's great that you can all join us, and we've got some of our amazing students on. I've been lucky enough to have all of them in my different classes. I'm a subject leader at AFTRS. I teach screen business, which is honestly not just about business and maths. I know everyone thinks that when they come in, but it's actually about a whole lot of other exciting things around audiences and developing your projects and getting them out there. So I would like to start by thanking all of our students that have come in and introduce you to them briefly. We have Shana, Kyle, Holly, Robert, Tace and Rishi. And I thought the first thing is to let them tell you a little bit about themselves. So we were talking about this before, and I've given them the option. I said, do you want to mention something that you wish you'd worked on or that you love, a project out there, a film or show, or your top moment at AFTRS? So let's mix it up a bit and see what they come back with. So Shana, I'm going to start with you if you'd like to introduce yourself in that context.
Yes, so hi, I'm Shana. I'm in year 2. I'm going to talk about my favorite film. My favorite film is Your Name. It's a Japanese animated film. It's beautiful. It makes me cry. It makes me just, I don't know, just so many feelings. And I guess I picked that film because I want my films to induce that many feelings in people. Yeah, it's just beautiful.
Thank you. Kyle?
In terms of a moment that I think resonates me from my first year at AFTRS, because I'm in the first year, was I actually think my first day walking into AFTRS, it was screen business. And we had the lovely Cody open our screen business lecture by singing, "There's no business like show business." And I remember just hearing, you could hear a pin drop within the BA Year 1 cohort where we're all just like, what did we walk into? This is the best thing I've ever seen. And I remember just a whole bunch of applause happening. And I feel like if even on day 1, you're getting a massive song and dance from the amazing Cody Jarrett, you're definitely in for a massive ride in the fact of coming to AFTRS.
Oh, thanks, Kyle. Holly?
Hi, I'm Holly. I'm in the 3rd year majoring in screenwriting and directing. And I don't think I'll pick a moment at AFTRS because they've all been quite special. But similar to Kyle, Cody did stand out on my first day. But my favourite show is Friends, and I really hope to bring sitcoms to Australia and work in the sitcom space because I really enjoy having a laugh and I really enjoy comedy. And that's one of my favourite shows.
Yeah. Thank you, Holly. Tace?
Hey, So I think I'll speak to a moment at AFTRS, and we had this guest speaker, one of the directors from Our Time Machine, which is a documentary, and it's a beautiful story about this puppeteer in China and his relationship with his dad. And that after watching it, like the entire time, like I just had tears streaming down my face, and it was just so beautiful and just so raw. And I particularly like love documentaries and want to work in that space. So yeah, for me, that was a moment where I was like, wow, this is, you know, very powerful story. And I'm excited to see what other powerful stories there are, you know, to tell.
Thank you, Chase. Rishi.
Hey everybody, I'm Rishi. I'm a third year BA student as well, majoring in cinematography, but I dabble in other things. I'd say that the moment that that really stands out in my memory at AFTRS is again another screen business thing. I think it's just because Cody's in this room, but after first semester, very like year one, I took the whole year out for a meditation on the grass, which was like, I mean, I've been meditating for 10 years or something, but it's nothing that's really struck me as sort of, you know, like I've always done it in secret. It's always just been like my regular practice at home. I've never taken it into my working life or anything, but it was kind of a pretty profound moment for me because I was there with sort of 70 other students out on the grass and everyone was just meditating. And I I don't know whether I felt like, you know, filmmaking was going to be this sort of cult that I was getting into for life, or whether it was just this kind of really accepting community of people that were just totally ready to get on board with sort of any sort of, you know, ideas that might be seen as more out there than, you know, your traditional business subjects. Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, thanks, Rishi. I remember that well. I think it was a great end of your first week at AFTRS. I think everyone was taken aback. We're meditating in a business subject, but we all had fun. It was nice outside, so go with the flow.
It was a really beautiful moment, yeah.
Robert.
Hello, I'm Robbie. I would say that if I could have worked on anything, it would probably have been Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's my favorite show of all time. It did come out when I was born, though, so I probably wouldn't work on it if I could travel back to that time because I would be a baby. But anyway, I just think it's so beautiful, like all the range of emotions. It's heartbreaking, funny, ingenious. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you. And you know what I love about all this, and for everybody listening, like everything is about the emotion. It's always about that. It's like that great saying, which is we watch films and TV and content not to escape reality, but to engage with it. And I think it's lovely to hear how many people are talking about those powerful emotional moments. Now, before I throw to one of the questions that I'd like to ask, I do see that we've got one about, is the course mainly to do with pre and post-production or all aspects? It's about all aspects. It will take you the whole way through. So from the very beginning, the germ of that idea where you're just sort of, what if? And you'll go through and absolutely do everything. And that will even culminate in how you get something out there and the business aspects of it. So I guess in that way, it's probably a little bit different to a uni course. And that's probably one of the things I'd love to ask the students. So Robbie, I might throw back to you to start with about this. What do you think is the difference between, you know, that experience at AFTRS versus if you did a course at university?
Well, I actually did a course at university for 3 years before I started AFTRS. I was doing neuroscience. So I would say the main difference is that with AFTRS, it's kind of, it takes you through what it would actually be like working in the industry. Like you feel like the assignments, for example, that you're doing, they're not just assignments. Like that's kind of the secondary purpose of them. What you're doing is you're creating something that could serve as something you would actually use like in your career. Whereas with other uni courses, at least the one I'm familiar with, it's more about, I don't know, I don't want to shade any other courses, but it's more about like just learning or even just rote learning things that can kind of qualify you to start learning about the actual practice in the industry. So I would say like the course at AFTRS definitely prepares you for what it's actually going to be like working in the industry.
And I guess what you touched on there, and Rishi, I'd be really interested to ask what you think about this, where you've got that connection between the subjects that you're doing and then how those are taken into productions. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience of that?
Yeah, okay, sure. I mean, I guess in the subjects, it's a very general kind of, you get a very general idea of film as a whole and how film sets function, how all of that functions. I definitely know, having stepped onto other sets from, you know, people who haven't been trained with a film school background, there are a lot of things that sort of just get overlooked because you don't get such an extensive look at film as a whole and how everything functions. There are a lot of, you know, people don't know, a lot of people who don't know certain elements of film, and that kind of works to the detriment of the film in some regards. It's kind of hard to explain, but like, say, as a cinematographer, I need to know, you know, where the sound can stand so that they're not getting in the shadow. And I need to know a little bit about sort of sound and, you know, how that all works so that I can know that they're going to be close enough to the subject to be able to catch something with a boom. And it's just like, there are all these random little things that you wouldn't even pick up on unless you'd kind of gone through each subject and learnt every individual bit. And then you carry it through to your practice. Just it's very evident when you do it. It's kind of, again, a bit hard to explain because, you know, the best experience in my experience is on-set experience. There's a lot of experiences in that sentences. I'm sorry. Yeah, the best experience is on set, and at AFTRS, I feel like you get this real sandpit where you're allowed to play with everything, and your marks, you know, you care about them to some extent, but they're not so vitally important because at the end of the day, you're trying to make something that you're proud of. And, you know, it's about making art rather than getting marks, and the marks is just a sort of an additional thing where the marks are more to indicate what you've learnt. I've found that's how I've used them anyway. Like, I see a real benefit in just screwing up a little bit at film school so that I know what to do and I know what I've done wrong, and my marks will reflect that, and I'll get feedback and I can work on that. And
yeah, and look,
yeah,
I guess it's that thing, Rishi, that we talk about a lot, which is, you know, when you get feedback around all that, it's less about the mark that you've got and what you're going to take into the next production you do or the next, so it's building on that learning. I guess it's in the same way because, you know, we talk about storytellers all the time, and it's putting all those elements together like you would with a story. You go, what's the genre, what's the character, where am I going? And I think what we try to do is give everyone a little bit of all those different experiences to weave that narrative together.
yeah.
So, and I guess on that note, I'd be really curious to ask Holly, what is something you learned that you kind of went, oh, I didn't expect to learn that?
Okay. Well, I'll be really honest. I had a gap year because I was really struggling to figure out what I wanted to do. And I went to London Film Festival and fell in love with film. And I actually called after straight away, not knowing what a director was, not knowing what a producer was, not knowing what a cinematographer was. Like, I really didn't know what they specifically did, I guess. And so the whole process has been a huge learning curve. And that's what I've really loved about it, because it's such a great stepping stone into an industry that otherwise seems impossible. Like, you really, if you're on the outside, you just feel like that's not going to happen. Like, but this course has like slowly integrated me into it kindly, and then you fail, and film school gives you the best like opportunity to fail and learn and ask the dumb questions. And yeah, before you do step onto a professional job or a set where you probably should know all those things, or you don't want to embarrass yourself. So one thing that I've learned, oh gosh, I don't even know. I think the failing is the best. Like, I really feel like Rob said, with the assignments being actual pieces of work. So we've made documentaries, we've made short films, and I think like just doing it, you just have to do it, and you just have to fail a little bit, or maybe you'll have some success, but you might not have the success of the expectation that you had for that project. And so you learn from that, and you learn to manage your expectations, and then you learn how to go on further. And you're just always learning. Like it's just a whole thing. And so that's why the 3 years seems like a long time for a course, especially for something that you just want to start doing. But it's a really good amount of time to kind of get the hang of it, I think.
And it's interesting too, Holly, that you're talking about what what you've done before and what you thought a role was and you weren't sure, and now you've almost come to the end of your 3rd year. So I guess I'm really keen, Shana, because you're right in the middle now, of the whole journey. Like, in terms of when you first came in and what you're doing now, how have your perceptions changed, if they have at all, from when you first came in?
Oh, it's definitely changed a lot because I came into AFTRS right out of high school. So it was a big transition in my mentality of approaching just study. Because of course, HSC, I was focused on getting the perfect marks. Because I saw the highest number would get me into the best course kind of thing. And then I met AFTRS, and AFTRS didn't even look too much into my marks. It was more about my passion for storytelling. I definitely didn't expect for anything to I didn't expect to get in, because I was I'm just gonna try, because I wasn't very experienced in filmmaking, but I just had a big passion for storytelling. So when I came into the course, I was like, okay, I'm going to take notes. I'm going to get the perfect grades. And then I soon realized that it's not about the marks. It's about the experiences. It's very much about the people that you meet as well, and what their experiences can, add to yours. And in terms of failing, I never saw anything as failing in this course. I saw it as, okay, this is the step that I need to take to become an even better filmmaker. When I read my feedback, of course, I love reading everything that I did good about it, but I always almost jump to, okay, what can I improve to, make the next piece I make even better. And yeah, I guess that's what I can take away from it. It's definitely just about evolving and the experience more than the academics
And I think that connection that you're talking about is kind of important as well, though, that they don't sit separate, everything builds upon everything else. And I think that the last message that I'd want to send out is that, that we don't want people to really unpack and think about stuff, even though we do a lot of production. And I think, Tace, you would be good at speaking about this, that connection between the assessments and how you take that into, the work that you're doing. How have you found that?
Yeah, throughout the semester, all the subjects and assessments, they prepare you for the bigger production at the end of semester. And sometimes it's a bit overwhelming, especially when you read the assessment outlines at the start of semester, you're like, how the heck am I ever going to get to that? For me, I don't understand it sometimes, but with AFTRS, they scaffold the learning, and it's really cool to go through the semester, and at the end you're like, wow, that's just been such a crazy journey. But yeah, they really scaffold it, and everything feeds into, is related to the end of semester production. And just, it's really cool to see that process.
And look, I think I'd have to add here, I'm not trying to embarrass our students that are on, but I'm going to. One thing they all have in common, and we see this a lot, is there's this real openness. So I would encourage anyone that wants to come into this school, they're all really open to kind of going, what can I learn, to having that feedback. And they all ask lots of questions. So sometimes I actually get emails, which is, I'm sorry, driving you crazy with questions. And I'm like, don't ever stop asking questions. And I think you find that generally, that we would all encourage you to do that. Kyle, I think, because you've just gone through your first year, I'm kind of interested to hear from you, and I'm sure everyone would, about the actual experience of being a student. So getting away from the subject stuff a little bit, like the kind of support that you've been given and how you found being a student at the school.
I think for me, it's coming into this course. I think the one thing that one biggest piece of advice that I'd give to prospective students who want to come to AFTRS is just be open and transparent with everything and everyone. I mean, no one at AFTRS, it might sound a bit crazy, but like no one's a mind reader. Well, actually, that's not really crazy to you. But the whole aspect is like, if you want that support, if you need that extra help, if you want to get the most out of this course, it's about being open and transparent with both the lecturers, people like Cody and Joe, and also the student engagement managers. But it's very interesting to be asking about the first year, because I feel like a lot of us in the first year have spent a lot of our time in little boxes and being being sort of with our own sort of thing. And so it's quite a hard question to answer, because we've spent so much time in our own sort of thing. And so now we've just gotten the aspect of coming back to the course and really kind of understanding how much we actually love being on campus and being around people. So yeah.
And do you feel then, Carl, that there's a level of support outside of your teachers? You know, like that we have student engagement officers and people that will help with that. What do you think is available for students there so that they don't feel, because it has been a year of going, you know,
Yeah.
It's been really challenging, and who else can I reach out to?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, as you said, the student engagement managers are a really great resource for people to go to. AFTRS have just hired a counselor, like a full-time counselor, to come on and be like, hey, if you need that extra support, if you need that help. Of course, they're not a doctor, so they can't really prescribe you any medication or anything, but they can be the extra level of support. And yeah, AFTRS are really great with things like mentoring hours and really kind of, if you want to talk to somebody and get extra help in any specific subject, any lecturer will be like, oh my God, yes, talk to me whenever, I've got time. Don't ring me at midnight. I'm not going to do a Zoom session then. But yeah, I mean, all the teachers and all the lecturers have been really open and really been able to, even if you haven't had them. I mean, I've had mentoring sessions with like half of the people with who I probably haven't even had a subject with, but just the fact of continually trying to network and engage with your own practice and being within the school is really important.
Thanks, Carl. So we've talked quite a bit about how wonderful all the staff is, and no, we're not paying them all. You might think that, because I'm starting to go, oh, we sound good, you know, this is making me feel great. But anyway, but you know what I think is good? Can you talk about the cohort a little bit, Robbie, like the other people that are around you, the other students? What's your experience of the mix of students and how everyone works together?
Well, I think everyone brings something new to the table. Like not everyone's from like a different place. They're coming for a different reason. They have different interests, different personalities, and I think the diversity is really enriching. Like you can't expect yourself to be able to have all the answers or to be able to do everything alone. You need the people around you to help you through it. And I think a lot of the time we are helping each other as well learn. Like, sorry, my dog's in the background there. I think, just as Kyle said, how there's always someone to talk to. It's not just the staff and the counselor. You have to talk to your peers as well. And I think Rishi said this before as well, actually. You come to AFTRS not just for the teachers, the subjects, the course, but for the people that you meet there and network with. And these are going to be people you're going to be working with for hopefully the rest of your career. So you really need to lean on them, support each other, and be there for one another.
Great, thank you. I think that's good. There is such an amazing mix. I feel like, to be honest, I kind of feel privileged as a teacher to get to meet so many different people. It's almost like, oh, this is a really well cast show, because there's such a range of characters. Who am I going to meet up with today? It's like you're never stuck in the same genre. Do you know what I mean? The same people. I think on that, it's probably good to find out too a little bit about the projects that you've worked on. I'm sure some of the people out there listening would love to hear a little bit about that. Before I ask you about that, Rishi, because you've worked on so many different things, there's a question about being, I think it's picking up on my comment about being open. So I'll just try to quickly explain that. And what I mean by that is I pretty much say to all the students when they come in, because I'm the first person, I think, outside of Joe that you get to see. And I say, I actually have just one goal for you. And it's like, oh, she's only got one goal. This will be easy. But actually, my goal is to go, I would love for everyone to come out of here more open to process, to ideas, to working with other people, to listening to other people, to exploring the world. So I guess that's what I mean about that, is coming in with an open mind, an open heart, and open eyes to everything. And that is the roles that you're going to do, or whose project you work on, or whose stories you might want to tell. So that's what I mean by that. So I guess that's kind of a good segue, Rishi, to the stories and projects you've worked on.
Just before you do that, Cody, I'll just jump in very quickly, because I think that is something that's really, really important. I think, there's two parts to what I feel we do at AFTRS. One of them is obviously the craft skills and learning how to use cameras and lights and, learning how to put a budget together and etc. But there's another, some might say even more important part of that, which is about, I guess, those kind of professional skills, the kind of mindset thing, the ability to be adaptable, the ability to be creative, the ability to communicate and collaborate. And actually, they're the skills that are the hardest to find in people. And they're the things that I think we spend a lot of time kind of focusing on and concentrating on. So that idea that a student is open is actually very difficult to teach, and for anyone to learn anything if you're not open to kind of new ideas, to be challenged, to get outside of your comfort zone. But actually all of those things are the things that allows you, to, for example, cope with COVID so well. And I've spoken to all the students and all of you about how well I think you've all adapted to COVID and adapted to that. And I think, when you are going out into the industry, they're the things that they're going to be looking for. How well did you manage? What did you do? What creative solutions did you find? Sorry, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Rishi, can you tell us a little bit just about the different projects, just so people have a range of, the range that you work on, some ideas around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've worked on, I would say, over like 30 productions now, having started the degree. At the very beginning of the degree, I didn't really have any on-set experience. And now I've like just finished class. I just wrapped on a shoot last night. It was a 7-day shoot. And yeah, I've just got a ton of different experience, all sorts of places. I've got some short film experience as well as feature film experience. I've been in India on Bollywood films now, not directly through AFTRS, but God, it makes like life easier having been to AFTRS and being able to say, hey, I'm studying at AFTRS. Can I come follow you around on set for a little while? Like one thing about AFTRS is it's the Australian National Film School. Like there is nothing better. Like the Southern Hemisphere, the best film school in the Southern Hemisphere. It's just an incredible thing to have on your resume. Like I've been on a ton of productions, all different roles as well. Like mostly cinematography roles now, but I've been a producer, I've been a writer, I've been a director, I've done first ADing, I've even done sound once or twice. There's just all sorts of experience. Do you want me to speak to anything in particular?
Oh, look, I think that's great. And if I wanted to add something, it's probably that I would be really keen for everybody out there listening to understand that, even with our title, we're not just film focused, like we're really looking at a range of projects. And I suppose I'm pushing the screen business barrow a little bit here by saying that there's so many other opportunities outside of film, so we're really keen on people doing episodic. We want to look at interactive and immersive storytelling. Podcast is such a growth area. So I would just say that to anyone that's coming in, we love it when we see people that are willing to embrace a whole range of formats, I guess, and opportunities, because there are very different ways and platforms to tell stories, and we're really keen at AFTRS to keep going, look at all these other options. You know, we don't want people that are only thinking it's film. And I guess on that, people are probably thinking now in terms of their applications, well, what do I put in? So Tace, I was going to ask you, because it's always a question we get around, you know, what can I put in? And I think it's not a template, really. We don't want to say to people, this is just what you have to do. But I'd like to ask you, you know, how did you go about thinking what you're going to put in to express your voice? What were the key things around the application process for you that were important?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to make sure that through my applications, I got to introduce myself to AFTRS so that whoever was reading the application will get to know who I was. And for me, like, you know, to get to know me, you have to know my family and where I come from. And I think that really came through my application. So I wrote the first part of my application to kind of show that I could write. I ended up filming when I did the analysis of a creative piece. So I did that on Speak Country, and that was pretty a bit of a rush job, but that was just an opportunity for AFTRS to put a face to a name, you know, to visually see who I was. And for the creative work, I included a documentary that I shot and edited, and so that was, I think, that was kind of like the biggest kind of like project I've ever worked on prior to AFTRS. So actually, yeah, this application forced me to edit it and create something. And that was, so that was kind of, we had a bunch of kids come out from Wilcannia and come to Sydney, and they did like some tie-dyeing activities. We went on public transport, which was pretty cool, went to Luna Park. It was a pretty fun day. And that was, I think a way to show the kind of stories I'm interested in, the style, like the genre of doco, and also to kind of show like my shooting style as well. Yeah.
And how did you, Shana, if there were people that were a little bit stuck on their applications, because again, I think voice is a hard one, and sometimes people get a bit thrown. It's like, oh, what's my voice? And I think, Tace, what you just spoke to was really interesting, because it's really about family and experience, and you know, you've brought some of those values and things that are, you know, of great meaning to you. But Shana, if there's people out there that are going, yeah, but I feel stuck, is there anything that you think you could offer them, like from you going through that experience?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was in the same position. I felt really stuck because I didn't have like a multitude of experience. My experience in film was editing school projects that we shot for fun and presented to like English classes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if this is enough. So I honestly just spoke to my passion for storytelling, because since I was 5, I've just like wanted to be an author. So I spoke to that. I made a video just about, how much I loved reading, how much I loved fictional worlds, creating stories. And I just poured my heart and passion into just showing AFTRS that I'm this passionate storyteller that really wants to, you know, show the film industry what I have, like what stories I have to tell. I guess my one big advice is just be yourself, just speak to your passions, because AFTRS is very big on, you know, you showing your passions, and that's the one core value I would say that they really put up there. Just your passions for storytelling. Yeah.
That's true. I think passionate, it gets back to some of that stuff we talked about at the beginning, wasn't it? When you all just talked about things you connected with. There's so much of it, is it around that emotional connection? We've got a question in here, which is, what are the students' experiences with finding their voice as filmmakers? What has this meant for them? I'm going to throw that one to you, Holly, to start.
Okay. It's a hard one, and we still work on it in year 3. It's something that you don't just kind of acquire. I think you kind of find it by just experimenting, and a lot of us come into the course knowing what we want to say, and others don't. And you do have to be kind of open with trying new things, like as Cody said, podcasting or you kind of find what you want to do, but your voice, I think, stays quite the same, and you start to recognize it. And it was really interesting when we weren't in lockdown in March, when we were in the building, we did an exercise in screenwriting, finding your voice. And because it was year 3, we've worked with people for 2 years now, we had the class kind of tell us what they think our voice is. And it's so interesting having others tell you, like, I came up with rom-com. I didn't even realize that was something that, like, all of the films I'm interested in have the same storyline and they're all rom-coms. I didn't pick up on that myself. And so it's good to have people that get to know you and get to know your working style, and then they kind of want to work with you because they know how you work. And slowly, yeah, it kind of just all falls into place. It's something you don't want to rush or pinpoint too quickly. It just comes naturally.
And Kyle, how have you found that through the first year, like coming in with an idea of the kinds of stories that you want to tell? How do you feel like your voice has come out more, or how you've learnt to express that in terms of what you've been taught and the projects that you've done? How's that drawn that out of you?
I think that every Friday for the year ones, we do a screening analysis and a seminar, which is not a marked subject. It's the only not marked subject. And through that, you kind of get a very social and political awareness of both you as a creator and what's happening in the world. And you look at things like, is film political? How do you relate to these sort of things? And you watch films and you kind of get the basic aspect of, like, did I like this film? Did I not like this film? Why did I like this film? Why didn't I like it? And so you're actually building up these already aspects of as to your own feeling of what I want to create and how I want to create it. But also, as you said, kind of breaking down what you already thought and actually building a kind of new kind of version of being like, okay, this is what I want to create. This is the reality. This is what's already out there. And these are the sort of cultural competency areas that I need to be thinking about in terms of how I want to create this project.
Great answer. Thank you. Robbie, I'm going to ask you now, throw you right into you're in the middle of all this year 2 stuff. The last semester of year 2, which is where you get to do a couple of different projects over the year. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience at the moment in the episodic and what that means? Because again, that's getting away from that film experience. I'm curious to hear about what you're doing at the moment.
Cool. So I guess the main thing that we've kind of been introduced to this semester doing episodic is how different the crew roles are and how different the crew works together, as opposed to like film, for instance. So I'm personally producing a proof of concept for a pilot TV show, prospective. And yeah, it's different to anything we've done so far, because I don't know. Sorry, I'm a bit stumped.
That's all right. It's about, a little bit about the scale of it too, isn't it? It's working in a very different way. I think what we try to do with it is give you that experience of, a different way of running things, but a much bigger crew. And, you're not just focused on a very small project that you've generated. It's very much about teamwork, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, for sure. The proof of concept I'm working on, we've only got a small team because we're using a podcast as a tool instead of shooting something. So we haven't got a huge crew for that. But I'm also editing on one of the larger projects in the grade. And it's interesting to like learn how everyone kind of works as like a little cog in this massive machine, all, I guess, serving the idea, the production as a whole. You really have to kind of put aside any egos, know your place kind of thing. And yeah, it's always the idea that comes first. You have to separate yourself from the project, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and look, I think this second year of your studies, they're so different, the first and second semester, in terms of what you do. Tace, can you tell me what you think has been the key things for you, the points of difference and what you've got out of moving from non-fiction into episode. They're so different. That's the kind of stuff we teach you. What are the main things that you've taken away from that?
It's interesting because in semester 1 this year, for documentary, all of us, because we were in lockdown, we had to work on our projects by ourselves. So we kind of did miss that collaboration that collaboration, even though we got to, get a little bit of collaboration in our tutor groups. But that was interesting, like working on every single role really tested you and your capacity. But for this semester, working in a large team, it's awesome to see how, so I'm one of the writers for one of the episodic productions, and we've just been in like a little bubble of like 5 writers, and it's really cool to see like other departments kind of like bring their kind of passion and interest to this, like to our scripts, and kind of like build this massive like world. So I think, that's been really cool to see that unravel and kind of build.
And I guess too, from that writing perspective, it's such a different way of doing things, isn't it? Rather than just saying, I've come in, this is my idea, this is my script, I'm moving through, like to actually have that experience of a writer's room. Must have been quite a different experience for you than writing other stuff.
Yeah, no, it was. I think, because you're working together, like there needs to be continuity over the 5 episodes. You can't just write your episode and just be like stuff the others. Like you have to work together and look at, the character arc, the story arc, and it's just really like in a 5-minute episode, it's really cool to see how the other writers have kind of, just how much you can get in an episode. Like you have to use every second needs to be like it's there for a purpose. Yeah.
And I guess, Rishi, now that you're almost finished, and I know you've talked a bit about stuff that you've done outside of AFTRS and so forth, but looking back, in terms of how you, I guess, really learnt to identify your voice, the projects that you've worked on, the roles that you've done, what can you tell us about that? Because it's been such a big journey from when you were meditating with us on the lawn.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was actually thinking this because I've just jumped off literally 2 a.m. last night. I wrapped on a shoot, so apologies if I'm sort of stammering in my words a bit. But I realized during that shoot just how much everyone's voices had sort of shone through everything. Like looking at each of the productions that the kids graduating this year are making, you can see so clearly who's what, and you don't even need to look at the names. Like the production that I just jumped off, for example, the director is this sort of really artsy guy, Noah. He's come from like a fine arts background. He's always sitting in his studio painting. And so his film is about these squatters in the 80s. There's like his paintings are literally scattered all throughout the film, like all these warehouses, all of these abandoned buildings. We've just dressed the whole place with paintings of his, and like it could not be made by anyone else. And myself as a cinematographer, I mean, I kind of attach myself to projects that I enjoy stylistically, and sort of like that one really spoke to me because I feel like, I've been in sort of situations and shit that, oh, sorry, did I swear? I've been in situations that have kind of, reflected that world a little bit. I have squatted myself in the past. And, I felt that I could connect to the project, and any project that I get on, I want to feel some sort of connection, or I want to feel that that project is going to bring me somewhere else that I want to get. So the other project is kind of this romantic comedy. And one of my big goals in life is to go work in Bollywood, where they do a lot of romance and they do a lot of comedy. And so that's also perfectly sort of aligned with my values. And just like it is astoundingly clear how much your particular voice just shines through at the end. And yeah, you just get to know your whole cohort. You get to know your whole cohort. You get to know exactly the sort of things that they're going to be making. And by the end of it, it's so clear what they're going to do in life. You can see their whole career path just from their graduation film. It's incredible.
And I think what you touched on there really is, you know, sometimes we feel like it's a word that's overused, but it does actually resonate. And that is, you know, that authenticity. Like, where do you resonate in terms of your values and what your view is of the world and what you want to highlight or shape or change? Or I think that's really important. And that you're also talking about, you know, some of those strategic choices too, to make sure you have those skills. So I'm just looking at a few questions. Can I just ask everybody who's listening to this, please put your questions in the chat. I usually find what happens is by the end, there's all these questions rushing in, and then people get left out. So don't feel shy about that. But I am going to go to a couple of those now. So one of the questions is, what is the largest project the students complete? And as you can see, I've got a couple of my kids who are pretty much the age of either my students or all of you coming in. So this is the time they get up. Anyway, so yeah, I think, Holly, I'm going to throw that to you because you're now at the end. What's the largest project you think that you would get to work on?
Do you mean
while you're at AFTRS? Yeah, which is maybe talking to the building up towards the grad project, I guess.
Okay. Well, at AFTRS, we obviously do a lot of production. I was involved in an internship which AFTRS set up, where I worked on a feature film, which was actually the first feature film I've helped on. And I saw that through pre-production, into production, and then also into post. And so that was a really great experience. And I think that's probably something that is the biggest production I've seen made while I've been at AFTRS. However, while I'm at AFTRS, I think short films are probably the biggest thing, and they are really important. And I think I've taken that for granted. When I first started at AFTRS, I thought by the end, I'll be making a feature film. I was like, obviously, like I'll be able to make an hour-long film, hour and a half. But the value of short films and getting a story told in 10 minutes is something that I think I really underestimated. And that's what I'm working on for graduation. And I'm producing a short film and I'm writing and directing one. And so I think it's something that's really important to master before you do move on to those next stages. And yeah, just being patient with your process and taking it slow and not trying to jump on the next feature film is too soon. You know, short films are really valuable, and that's what I've really enjoyed.
And we have another question around how everybody feels.
Sorry, Cody,
level of confidence.
Just before you do that, Cody, just very quickly, so to jump in, I feel almost contractually obliged to kind of reframe slightly the question about the size of the production. So it's interesting. I had a conversation yesterday with our subject leader for Image, who's a cinematographer, and we were talking about actually the scale of projects is actually, while I think something that's quite easy to hook into, is actually not as rewarding or beneficial to talk about the level of risk you take in a project. And by risk, I mean kind of creative risk and the stories that you tell. And actually, you can tell a very big story without needing, 3 cameras, 27 locations, a cast of millions and VFX. I think for me, that's what we're trying to do on the BA, is actually looking for really bold, creative, risk-taking in the stories that we tell and the way that we tell them. And I think that is where the learning kind of scaffolds are. Sorry, back to you.
No, I think that's really true, Joe. And it's worth saying, I guess if I had to, summarize that, I would say that we're always looking for a depth of storytelling, not just a breadth of scale. And every single year, I have to tell you, some of the projects that come out that are the most amazing in terms of what they've said, how they move you, and they stay with you long after. Honestly, they're often 1 or 2 locations, only a couple of characters, but they've really dug down into something and they've got you on a heart connection. Because I think we're all really mindful of really saying we don't just want style over substance. You know, it's really about that substance, and it's getting to the heart of something. But yeah, we have a question around how people feel when they're going to move into the industry. Do they feel confident? So I guess that's a good one to ask our year threes. But I also, before that, I just want to ask Shayna again, halfway through, how do you feel about that?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I feel like, yeah, AFTRS is really good at helping you build that confidence. I know personally I'm more confident than I was when I entered, when I started studying here. I guess it speaks to that, yeah, the experience that AFTRS gives you. They really dig down on preparing you for what to expect in the industry, and not just in terms of, yeah, this is what you need to do. It's also like the kind of people you meet as well. They do say like there are a lot of personalities in the industry. Some of them you might gel with, some of them you might not. And I guess it's just they help you build that interpersonal kind of, yeah, interpersonal skills of how to, I guess, mold yourself with the kinds of different people that you work with. And in terms of the actual roles, they are very good at helping you in where you get stuck. I think that was mentioned before. There's a lot of mentoring sessions that you can take, and they really ask you like where are you stuck at, and they will help you go through like, okay, this is what you need to do. Maybe like check out this resource. Maybe this will help you through. So I'm personally doing a social media coordinator role right now in Episodic, and I've never done that before. And I was very like, yeah, I wasn't too confident because, yeah, I've never done it before. But with all the resources that they're giving me, I definitely feel like I could move into something like that when I graduate. And that's from maybe like the 1 month that I've been doing it. And at the beginning of the month, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But now I'm like, yeah, it's just amazing, an amazing experience. All the resources and help that they give you.
And I think
Yeah.
the thing I think that's great about that, Shayna, is too that you've again touched on the fact that you do have an opportunity to learn so many different things. So I think that honestly, if anyone is applying with the idea that they only specifically want to come in and just do one role and do it the whole way along, it's not what we really want. Because, and I think Rishi said this right back at the beginning, everything impacts upon everything else. Like you actually do use skills that you might think, you know, I want to be a cine. What use is that to me if I do business or I do something else? But actually everything feeds into everything, and you do have a better understanding when you go out and you've got more options. So do you feel, Rishi and Holly, that you're well equipped to go out into the industry?
Do you want to start, Holly, or should I?
You start, Rishi.
Yeah, okay. So I just want to flag that AFTRS is, you know, an amazing place to study, but it is only going to be what you make of it. So there's some people walking past my room. It's only going to be what you make of it. So you really have to grind, because it is tough. Like it's a difficult degree for sure. And if you want to establish connections, and if you want to actually be getting work afterwards, you really have to make those connections, and you have to make friends with your tutors. You have to make friends with your colleagues. You have to sort of actually really push to get the work once you leave. And I can say that I'm fairly confident in my own abilities now, and I'm fairly confident that I'm going to get work as well. Like next week, I've got job interviews lined up for ABC, Endemol Shine, SBS. I've got feature films that I might be writing next year with some very big producers. I've got just like I've got like offers to be on the new Marvel films. I've just got like so much work coming through at the moment, to be honest. I think it's a little bit just like the times that we're living in, you know, COVID, everyone's sort of moving to Australia to work in film, which is another reason why it's really good to be in Australia studying at AFTRS during this period in time. But there's so much going on that I'm almost at a point where I'm having to pick and choose where I'm going to end up, and I'm having to actually turn down paid offers. I had to turn down 4 paid offers on Friday for paid work, like with Pedestrian TV, a pretty big like gaffer in Sydney that I want to work with. I had to turn down a few gigs just because I didn't have time for it, and like there's too much work coming in. So I would say definitely confident about all of that.
Thanks, Rishi. But I think your point is a good one, though, that, you know, and I would say this about all our students are on here, honestly, they all put in over and above. It's not just the minimum, what can I do to get through? They're very proactive. So like Holly, you would be feeling confident too, because I know you've created so much stuff along the way that you've learnt from AFTRS, but you've gone on and done your own web series.
Yeah, I do feel confident. I feel like AFTRS, as Rishi said, you know, your tutors are your colleagues, your friends are your colleagues, everyone wants to help you. TV talks is something I really recommend. I started to go to TV talks before I was a student, and then I've been every time since. And now that it's on Facebook every first Tuesday of every month, it's even easier because I don't have to commute for 5 hours. Yeah, so I do feel confident, and I feel like through TV talks, I've made a lot of networks, and I have a lot of friends that I can ask what's going on, can I help you out? I've also had offers like Rishi. Time is a big thing, but you just have to manage your time, prioritize what you want to do. And yeah, and even if you want to have like time off, that's fine as well. Sometimes you want that and need that. And so yeah, AFTRS has like been a really great stepping stone into the industry. I feel like most of the degree, I was like, should I just drop out and start working? But I think finishing off the degree has been a really good decision.
Thanks, Holly. And look, just to address a couple of the questions quickly, before I'd like to ask Tace and Carl about the Sydney experience, because I know that's always, people want to know what it's like being here. But yes, in terms of can you put in poetry? Absolutely. Are we going to give more weight to a video over a written application? No, because we're actually looking at, yet again, it's really your voice and how you express that, and what is the best way for you to do that is something that you will need to decide. So if you want to use the written form and you feel that it conveys a really strong sense of the kind of stories that you want to tell and your values and your worldview and all that sort of stuff, please do that, and don't feel like you're going to be disadvantaged over people that put the video material in. Tace, Sydney.
Yeah. But I've lived in Sydney for 8 years before I studied at AFTRS, but because I'm originally from Perth. But yeah, so I don't know if there's much I can speak to about relocating to Sydney for studies, but I know that a lot of people who have moved to Sydney for studies, a lot of them in my year, they all live at like UNSW. There's like accommodation there, which I know for them is like a great community support. So yeah.
Thanks, Tace. And Kyle, this is the last question I will inundate anyone with before I throw it over to Joe to finish our session for today. Can you just, just quickly give us your kind of Sydney experience?
I mean, I've lived in Sydney for basically all of my life, and it's actually good because I'm about to move closer to the campus tomorrow because I found a place, which is woo. So what I think is really important is just to kind of have an understanding of just being aware of like what's available. So like if you want to go through like a Flatmates or a Facebook and stuff like that, and the one thing that I've started realizing is how different platforms have a very different way of thinking about how they want to sort of fill their space or fill their extra room that they want to lease out to a potential person and stuff like that. I mean, it's not a question that is very easily answerable in 30 seconds, but I would just say, like, as I said before, is reach out to the engagement managers because they're always there They're always there to help you. And if you're ever worried about what you can and can't do, or you're worried about relocating to Sydney, it's just being open and saying, well, I'm a bit worried. And I mean, it's one of those things that as we keep growing, as the kind of people keep asking the questions, more stuff will get added about, like, where do you go to the doctor? Where do you go to a psychologist? Where do you go to this? Where do you go to that? Where are the good places to go and stuff like that?
I think, look, all that,
yeah.
that's really true. It's about reaching out. At the end of the day, there will be support and help from us, from everyone at the school, from other students. Can I thank all our wonderful students? And I should throw it back to you now, Joe.
Great, thank you very much. I just wanted to quickly, I was jotting a few notes down just as we were talking there, and you were answering those questions. I just want to end with, I guess, summarising some of the key messages there that we heard, and in no particular order. But I think, the first thing is that I think, we talked about, it's not just about film. I think we're really keen about storytelling across all platforms. The passion for storytelling and the storytelling generally, and that idea of passion and telling stories that really connect with audiences. We talked about the importance of the people that you've worked with at AFTRS and that you've collaborated with, and bouncing ideas off that kind of that sense of community that we have at AFTRS. The importance of hands-on experience, hands-on practice that you have, not being afraid to take risks and fail. And I think we should kind of note that failing creatively doesn't necessarily mean failing assessments. We're not suggesting that obviously everyone can fail assessments all the time. We do not recommend that. But I think the idea that you can take risks creatively is really important. The focus on being adaptive, creative, problem-solving thinkers. And we haven't talked about this that much, but I will take a chair's privilege here and kind of just say that also we talk a lot about on the course about being kind of multi-skilled generalists and getting people to try and practice all areas of the process with opportunities to specialize in key parts. And it was great to hear you all talk. I've always said as a course leader, one of the things or probably the most important thing that I wanted to achieve as a course leader was to create a course where students were able to make of that course what they wanted it to be, and they were able to shape their experience in the way that worked for them, and of course that rewarded hard work, rewarded engagement, rewarded the openness that Cody mentioned earlier. And I really, it's great to hear you all talk about those things, and I've no doubt that you will all go on and have great careers in all parts of the screen industries because of that engagement and the commitment and the work that you all put in. So thank you to Cody for throwing questions. Thank you to all our students. I appreciate it very much, and our students really make AFTRS what it is, and the community and the environment that it is. And thank you all who are watching. Appreciate you joining us on a Saturday morning into the afternoon, 3 minutes into the afternoon. Please apply if you're interested. Jump on the website. If you've got questions, get in touch. There's more information there about the application tasks, which we didn't have a chance to go into too much detail, but there's other resources on the website as well. So thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.